physical sciences. He has a master's degree and focused his studies in geology and specifically in the study of the ice ages. He has a keen understanding of how and why climate changes and the science of climate changes / global warming. There is so much information that is censored to the public regarding climate change, and you may be surprised how much the world has been brainwashed. Please welcome Kurt Stroiker.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. You know, ever notice that people can talk about weather any time of day? You get up in the morning, oh, it's a beautiful day. It's beautiful out, isn't it? It's lovely. Oh, it's going to be hot next week. Oh, next week's going to be really hot. Be ready. It's always about the weather. We talk about weather all the time. We're almost like professional weather people. But what do we really know about climate change and anthropogenic global warming? See, I'm going to talk on anthropogenic. That means man-made. Man-made global warming. Climate change. They had to get rid of global warming because we had a cooling period. So it goes all over the place. And so climate change is good enough for them, right? But no one in this room, I would even say in Sonoma County, believes in climate change more than me. I guarantee that. As a matter of fact, Bill Nye is a denier compared to me. And Al Gore is a complete denier compared to me as far as climate change and global warming. But what do I mean by anthropogenic, man-made? That's the problem. I want you to kind of have a look at this here. It's all about thermodynamics. Weather is not just a couple little sprinklings of carbon dioxide. It is a knob that turns the weather and is a control, like a thermostat. It is far more complex. We're going to talk a little bit about that with the ice ages and the warming periods and how carbon dioxide actually has a role in climate, and we'll talk about that too. But notice here, we have nitrogen 78%, oxygen 21%. Total 99% of our atmosphere is oxygen and nitrogen. Nitrogen is plant fertilizer, which is very good. Oxygen, we need that. That little bit there, of the 1% left, 93% is argon. Argon is an inert gas, doesn't do a whole lot, it's just in our atmosphere. This little stick right here, these are the trace gases. Carbon dioxide weighs in at 0.038%. In other words, it's trace. Methane, 0.0001%. It is so trace, it's measured in parts per billion. To say that it's something that we need to alter our behavior, not consume meat, stop drinking milk and dairy and cheese, no pizza, no Giordano's pizza for you Chicagans, and no New York pizza for the rest of y'all. But I'll tell you what, carbon dioxide, that is plant food. Without it, we all die. Methane, it's so trace, like I said, it is inconceivable. I'm going to pass this around here. Now this is my little cheeky thing here. It's $25 worth of pennies. And that's 2,500 pennies for anybody doing the math there. Anthropogenic global warming is a hoax, and I'm going to show you just with this, I'll pass this around. Carbon dioxide levels are at 400 parts per million. That's 400 over 1 million. That would be 1 over 2,500. Now, this whole pack is 2,500. This is all of our atmosphere. That 1 penny right there is all the carbon dioxide, if this was the atmosphere. Utter and complete nonsense. Thermodynamic ridiculousness. We contribute 4% of that penny. Now, just imagine 4% of that penny driving this whole lug of atmosphere. I'm going to pass it around. It's heavy, and it's about 15 pounds. Just remember that number. And if I had that many pennies to represent the atmosphere for methane, there'd be 1 penny for 400 of them stacked up. That's how trace methane is. To say that methane drives climate is complete nonsense. It is anti-science. So let me just leave it at that. I'm on a quest. If I can get this, there it goes. There it is.
One of my missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it this would be a dead planet. So I say not only is carbon dioxide good, it is essential And it's a good thing that we are putting some more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because it was running low before we came along.
CO2, we know its benefits for plants, but it is a known greenhouse gas, and we're pumping too much of it in, leading to global warming.
Well, actually, it may be a known greenhouse gas, but it's not known how strong it is in terms of changing the Earth's temperature. And so far in this century, there has been zero warming from a statistically significant basis, and the UK Met Office says so. Yet 1/3 of all human CO2 emissions have been put into the atmosphere in the last 18 years. So it doesn't look like a lockstep causal relationship between increasing CO2 and warming of the Earth.
I'm going to stop there. Here's another one.
One of the most interesting things is how little carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere. It's roughly 4/100th of a single percent. Common sense, and that's what we tried to get across to President Trump. Common sense would tell you how can 4/100th of 1% of a gas in the atmosphere control climate to the point that we have been spending an average of $6 billion a year fighting it for over a decade. But this is my favorite diagram. There is a picture of the Earth, and superimposed over it are 10,000 dots. There are 10,000 dots on that picture. The green dots represent the primary greenhouse gas, which you all know is water vapor. The large black area in the bottom is carbon dioxide, but the tiny little square in the bottom right-hand corner is man's contribution to carbon dioxide. Factories, automobiles, and power plants. I mean, how impossible it is to think that that little tiny bit it controls the temperature of the planet. It is absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
All right, climate change, right? We're talking about this a lot these days. We see people having all kinds of opinions, basically fixed on nonsense. I asked thousands of people over the last few years, probably the last 20 years, how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere? I have gotten one person in the many, many years I've been doing this, gave me the exact. He was a guy who did emissions on my car. Oh yeah, it's 400 parts per million carbon dioxide. He knew it. Well, he's a blue-collar guy, but virtually everybody goes, I don't know, it's a lot. Well, I asked him how much, like percentage. I said, well, 21% oxygen. They say, well, 50. See, they have this idea that it's massive. But the thing is, carbon dioxide is necessary for all living things. The more of it, the more vigorous plant life grows quickly and produces more food. It invigorates the biosphere, in other words. So we have an amazing thing with carbon dioxide. It is a greenhouse gas, and a greenhouse gas is simply a gas that holds heat. And it only holds heat strength enough during the day. Did you know that? It has to have sun activating it. So once the sun goes down, you notice it gets cold. Unless you're in Hawaii. What's the #1 greenhouse gas according to Jay? Water vapor. 95% of the world's greenhouse gas is water vapor. And it's not equally distributed throughout the world, because some places are very dry, right? Tropics. That's why you go to Hawaii, for the Mai Tais and the good weather, right? You get the pina coladas, and you get the beaches, but then I like it. My favorite time in Hawaii is at night. I used to live there. But at nighttime, I go and look at the stars. It's beautiful. I didn't have to wear a jacket. Didn't wear covers when I slept outside in the tropics. It's beautiful because water vapor holds heat better than anything else and much longer. Water vapor is the chief #1, 95%. Carbon dioxide is about 5%, of which we contribute 4%, as you saw. 4% of that trace amount is not driving climate. That is thermodynamic nonsense. So greenhouse gases absorb heat, emit heat. Greenhouse gases are everywhere, especially in the tropics. But see, carbon dioxide holds heat too, but for a very short time. Now let's do a little experiment here. I'm going to jump ahead. But if you experience a solar eclipse, you're going to experience cold immediately. As the solar eclipse goes over your head, and you're into, say, Colorado, Nevada, wherever you're going to be, not a lot of water vapor, high altitude. My friend told me it went from 80 degrees down to 65 in like less than 10 seconds. He said, man, it got cold quick. He had to get a jacket on when he was watching the eclipse back in 2017. So the hoax basically is this. Carbon dioxide is at dangerous levels, and you're contributing too much. So therefore, we're going to curb your, greenhouse gas production, tax you. We're going to also say you can't eat meat, got to eat bugs. Bugs are better. Don't drive climate change. You're doing your bit to save the world. Utter and complete nonsense. Now, this is one of the silly things I threw up there. The ratio to methane in our atmosphere of 1 out of 500,000. That little brick I sent around, if we have 400 of those, that would be 500,000 pennies. One of those pennies would equal the amount of methane if 400 of those stacked up represented all of our atmosphere. To think for a moment that that drives climate is utter and complete nonsense again. You can't teach such foolishness, but they are, and it's unabated. If you question, you're wrong. It's a settled science. So that's the most unscientific thing you could say. It's a settled science. That has never happened except here with these people who are pushing an agenda. Don't question. It's a fact. So anyway, here's some more numbers there you can see. Oh, I was going to say that cow. They're catching up his rump. Gas. Belching, bottom burps, as I say, right? Got some body burps. So they're trying to keep the world safe from climate change by doing this. This is really they do this.
And what are they going to do with it?
Absurd. All right. Here I am in Sydney, Australia. I used to live in Australia. It was a beautiful place to live. I lived there for about 4 years. So I made my trek to Bondi Beach. Ever heard of Bondi Beach? Bondi Beach, the most famous beach in Australia. They have a video you watch online called Bondi Rescue. It's pretty fun to watch. A lot of tourists get hurt out there. But anyway, so there I am in June, about this time last year. It was actually July, I think there. It was 2020. I was standing there at Bondi Beach. Notice it's wintertime. I'm in a jacket. And notice that the different people here are different times. 1889, 1909, 1989. Now, notice the background. It hasn't changed a whole lot. We are at one of the most stable times of Earth history, and we're arguing that ocean levels are rising. That's why Obama and team all buy property on the coast.
Yeah.
Absurd, isn't it? They don't believe it, but they're pushing it. There is an agenda behind it. It's control. That's just the bottom line. It's actually bringing in communism is what its ultimate goal is. But anyway, ocean levels are surprisingly stable. Fort Denison, this is in Sydney Harbor. Then and now. Notice that this is a terrible picture, but you can see that they're at the same level. We've had massive amounts. As a matter of fact, the Aborigines even talked about a time when they would walk out to where currently the Great Barrier Reef is. They would walk out there during the big Great Ice Age because water was stacked up on top of the continents. We'll talk a bit about that later. But they're telling us this stuff, and we're believing it because it's in the media. The media are full of liars and deceivers, and then they're propagating this foolishness in our schools. That's really where it's taken heart. Now, this is me, and there's a anthropogenic global warming is a hoax. That's all I'm saying. Glacier National Park forced to change science, saying after failure of climate change prediction, because they say the glaciers would be gone by 2020. Glacier National Park replaced the sign saying glaciers gone by 2020. They were there for over 20 years, and matter of fact, I had someone tell me he spotted one that was still there just recently. They hadn't even taken it down yet. Global warming is supposedly going to cause the oceans to rise and glaciers melting, and it's going to cause chaos, and it's going to end human. We've had glaciers, we've had warming periods, we've had ice ages, and we'll talk more about that. But the ocean levels are pretty stable. Now, getting back to what happened in 2017. You remember that eclipse that went over America? 2017 was August. It was t-shirt weather. My friend was there in Colorado. He drove up to where the thing was going to cast a shadow. And he was there enjoying the time. He said, I can't wait to see. It's going to be epic. And he was 80 degrees, and it dropped to 65 in seconds. He said he couldn't believe how quickly the temperature dropped because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It only holds heat during the day while the sun is touching it. Once you block the sun, now you get rid of that nice heat that it holds. And it doesn't hold it that long, and it's not that effective. Water vapor is far better at holding heat. Why do you pour water in a sauna? Yeah, I always put water in a sauna. I don't know if you guys into saunas? No? I guess I'm one of the few guys still. But you take a bottle of water and you sprinkle it over the rocks, and then you get a better sauna experience. So it holds the heat, in other words. It's not steamy, it's just holding the heat better because water vapor is that what it does. So this is the solar eclipse going over America. And, well, there it goes. Climate change in history. We got the ice ages, we got the Great Ice Age. One of my favorite times to talk about things is the Great Ice Age. To have an ice age, you need some key factors. We'll talk more about that, but you need warm oceans. Why do you think you need warm oceans to have an ice age? We got to get the water out. What if everything just cools down? Everything just cools. Well, we got a problem. It won't happen that way, but when things get cold, they just get colder. Oceans don't emit the water. But if you have water vapor coming out of the oceans when they're warm, cold continents to trap it, then you can get an ice age where you have 9,000 feet of ice in Yosemite Valley. Boom, right there. That's south of us, southeast. And Great Lakes area, Chicagoland, Detroitland, you get approximately, they say, about a mile of ice stacked right there. That's a lot of ice, that's a lot of water. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but I just want you to see that we've had times, the Greek Empire was during an ice age. They weren't going north, let's put it that way. They're staying south and doing their thing. Rome, however, had a warming period. The Roman warming period, we call it the mini ice age, had a warming period there, and life thrived. Greenland was green at one time, believe it or not. It was a farmland.
That's why they call it green.
That's exactly why they call it green. They don't call it white land. They call it Greenland. Also, you think about this. Rome went as far north, up at the Danube River and all that. Also Scotland. They grew grapes in England as far north as Scotland. That's global warming. That's not, Santa Rosa weather in Scotland, I'll tell you that. But back then it was. Climate changed. Of course it changed. It has always changed. It will never stop changing until God says there's no more change. You got the mini ice age, the medieval warming period. After that, of course, before that we have the Dark Ages. Life wasn't good then. We know from studying these things, and I'll mention this now, the Volstock ice core samples in Antarctica. Down underneath we got over a mile, almost 2 miles deep of core samples. And those core samples reveal something very key to us, that carbon dioxide levels fluctuate. So they try to figure out, why do we get so much more? Like, we're at 400 parts per million now. We've had lower, like 350. We've had 250 at one time. And then we've had as much as 2,500 parts per million. Still not a lot, but still it's way better for plants. And we get that when things warm because oceans degas when they warm. So we have an El Nino, we get lots of cloud cover, we get lots of carbon dioxide emitting from the oceans as they degas. Life is better. Carbon dioxide is the friend of humans, not the enemy. Never has been. Now, if you just breathe carbon dioxide, you're dead, right? You have hypoxia, you get in a box, you can die from that too, right? But out here, we always have about 21% oxygen. It's beautiful, and so forth. So, now, volcanism. Now, that's how we create the cold. So we have volcanism creates this cold environment by blocking the sun. Who remembers Mount St. Helens, May 18th, 1980? All right, that's what got me into geology. I'll tell you that right now. Mount St. Helena and Mount St. Helens are the two mountains that triggered me into going full on into geology and studying these sort of things. So Mount St. Helens blew, it sent a cloud of ash to Maine in less than 3 days. Underneath that cloud of ash for months was pitch black dark, and it was nighttime 24/7. You say, where's the sun? You can't see it, but streetlights are on all the time. And it wasn't until things settled out. Now that was a little pimple popping compared to some of the other volcanism. We had Lassen, we had Shasta, we had Mount St. Helena, which was twice as tall as it is right now. If you look at it, I'll show you a picture in a minute. It was twice as tall back in the day. It blew up. That's why we get the petrified forest. If you ever have a chance to go by there, we have these trees getting knocked over and buried, and permineralization takes place, which is petrification. I won't explain that now, but you can send me an email if you want more. But anyway, volcanic eruptions, we have the whole west coast going like crazy, blocking the sun. Now, this is just a little picture of the Cascades. There's lots of them out there, but this just shows you the mountains you can see here, there, and there. Those are volcanoes, and when they spew ash in the atmosphere, it blankets and covers, goes basically easterly, goes east. And then underneath that, we're blocking the sun. That's how we get an ice age. That's how we get the Great Ice Age. So I just wanted you to kind of bear that in mind there. All right. There's good old Mount St. Helens, or St. Helena. St. Helena. This is Shasta. All right, Mount Shasta is here. That's a beautiful picture. I took that myself. And that actually all of those. But anyway, Mount St. Helena used to be twice as tall. That's why we see boulders everywhere. Who's ever dug out? Mr. Simons, architect, has dug through earth in here all over Sonoma County. And I know he's run into a few rocks in his day. Am I right? If you live in Annandale, I know you run into rocks, and that's all you dig. Okay. So most of those rocks came in from Mount Hood, Mount St. Helena, and other fissures that blew up. This is all one big, huge, massive volcanic debris field. That's why you don't see a lot of fossils unless they were trees knocked over in petrification, of course. So, this is Hawaii. This is kind of a little hinge pin. Now, notice that it's white on top. Isn't that beautiful? That picture was taken by a friend of mine. And I said, I gotta have it. This is the lava field here and so forth. That's Mauna Kea, I believe. There's Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, and Kilauea. Kilauea is the one that's blowing up all the time. Mauna Kea just blew up recently. Remember, all the lava hits the ocean, then what happens? Lots of steam. That's my point. So to get an ice age, the Great Ice Age, you need lots of volcanism, and you need to block the sun. So Hawaii, at one time, was the bottom of the ocean. There was no Hawaii. Now, what caused Hawaii, we're not sure, but my hypothesis for my dissertation was a meteor strike. There is no, if you look there's no faults, there's no breakup. It's just like a bullet went into the earth, like a meteor. So most meteors hit and they thud, right? Some hit our atmosphere and fry. Some are big enough to make a big dent. And some are even big enough to go into the mantle and spew magma. That's what I think Kilauea, or the Hawaiian Island chain, was caused by those sort of things, meteor strikes. Enough to cause a bunch of magma to come in contact with water, warm oceans. Equal and opposite reaction. All that penetration there, getting into the earth, magma coming up underwater, creating massive amounts of pillow lava and steam until eventually you have this massive volcano, which is 33,000 feet from the bottom of the ocean. Mount Everest, sorry about that. Mount Everest is 29,028 feet. It domes over Mount Everest as it comes up from the bottom of the ocean. So we have warm oceans, and now we have a triggering reaction, say volcanism, all the Cascades going like crazy, hundreds of volcanoes. We know the big ones, Lassen, Rainier, Shasta, Baker, St. Helens, all these different ones. I can name a few more, but I'm just going to keep going. My point is, if they all go, you have all that ash flowing over the continent, the United States of America, and then you block the sun. We have warm, moist air blowing through, freezing, 1.5 miles, 2 miles deep in Yosemite Valley of ice. That's climate change. Who's ever heard of the mastodons? I wasn't going to cover this, but I mentioned it. Who's ever seen or heard of mastodons frozen in the tracks? Yeah. I have pictures of it. Actually, they're even frozen in their tracks, like freezing like they just died in the ice. And it's not like we find one or two of them. There are thousands of them. There was a whole industry of just looking for dead carcasses so we can get the tusks. The Russians had a monopoly on that at one time. Up there in Siberia where they find a lot of them too. So, we have an ice age. Something also interesting about ice. It accumulates rather quickly, quicker than we oftentimes think. The Lost Squadron, you can look this up. World War II, a squadron of P-38s and a few other planes had to do a crash landing there in Iceland, or Greenland. B-17 bombers and some P-38s. They crash landed, they all made it, and they knew where they landed. So they go back, that was during World War II. They go back 50 years later. They have to dig down 260 feet, 75 meters down into the ice to find it. This is how far they had to drill down. 75 meters down to catch one of those. They took it apart, they brought it up the tunnel they made, and then guess what? They reassembled it, and they call it Glacier Girl. But they missed the point. That's cool. What's even cooler is in 50 years, we accumulate 75 meters of ice. That accumulates pretty quick. And we're heading out of an ice age. Imagine if it was a real ice age. You'd be trapping mastodons in their tracks. You'd be freezing things. So climate change, absolutely. Global warming, absolutely. We have interglacial periods. We're in an interglacial period. We're coming out of an ice age. The last ice age is the Little Ice Age, which we're coming out of back in 1800s. And now we're warming up. Of course it's going to warm. But of course, the sky is falling, and it's your fault. All right? So, silly things happen all the time. Now, wrapping things up, climate is dynamic. It's not just a knob called carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not the knob that controls, like the thermostat, that controls weather. There is far more factors. We call this the anthropic zone. Anthros, again, man. Some people in schools call it the Goldilocks zone, right? So there's that life is possible there. Now, if I go a little too far away, too cold, guess what happens? All ice, no steam. If I get a little too close, closer to Venus, let's say, all steam, no ice. We got some problems. Life can't exist without water, steam, and ice all at the same time. So we vary in this zone. We sometimes a little closer, a little further, it just depends. We're not in a perfect round orbit, we're elliptical. As a matter of fact, during our winter, we're a little closer, typically. Australia gets a little more direct heat, but since there's so much more ocean in the southern hemisphere, it doesn't impact the weather as much except for El Niños, which is what we experience every now and then. They call it the atmospheric river, right? Who's ever heard that? Atmospheric river? The atmospheric cyclone bomb. Sounds threatening, right? Well, 10 years ago, they call it what? The Pineapple Express. It doesn't seem ominous. It seems like something fun. Let's go, right? So the Earth is at its tilt. Everything about our planet is designed for life. And even the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere is perfect for us. And it's always pretty steady, amazingly enough, 21% almost all the time. Carbon dioxide does fluctuate. As it warms, we get El Nino, we get waters degassing and getting more carbon dioxide, and life is better. It always is better. And we can demonstrate that just by what the people do in, what was that? I was over there in Switzerland. And I asked, what are all these here for? Is this normal? You guys have, they're everywhere. These greenhouses are everywhere. Well, I said, is there any special tricks you guys use? Oh, we pump carbon dioxide in them. And okay, you get a faster crop, a bigger yield with less water. So they become drought resistant. Plants become drought resistant when they have more carbon dioxide. And the simple answer is this. On the leaves, every leaf, it's green, has they call stomata. And the stomata are open. When they're open, they're absorbing carbon dioxide. But also when they're open, they're emitting water vapor. They transpirate. So you lose water necessary for building up it. If there's plenty of water, no big deal, right? But see, if you have a lot of carbon dioxide, plants don't need as much water. So you get a bigger crop, faster crop, with less water. So life is amazing on this planet. Even just like the tilt itself, that's climate change. Did you notice it's a little warmer than it was about 6 months ago? Yeah, maybe it was a little drier too. The weather is changing. Matter of fact, weather changed a lot from this morning to now. This morning it was like Marin County. Yeah, right. And now it's like Sonoma County or Sonoma. You know, it's always dynamic and changing. And it's not one thing, it's many things. It's the amount of ash in the atmosphere blocking the sun. It's the amount of the distance from the sun. Like, for example, if I'm too close to a fire, I burn my face off. If I'm too far back here, it doesn't do me any good. I got to be right there next to a campfire. Not too close, not too far, but just right. That's where our planet is in relationship to the sun. So I'll just mention this here too. The Milankovitch will talk homework assignment. I'll just do that. Okay, we'll hear this. I'm just going to show you this one real quick. This guy is great. Who's ever heard of John Coleman?
Ire, that is a word meant to put me down.
Founder of the Weather
I'm a
Channel.
skeptic about climate change, and I want to make it darn clear, Mr. Kenny is not a scientist. I am. He's the CEO of the Weather Channel now. I was the founder of the Weather Channel, not the co-founder.
And I'm glad you did, because I am addicted to the Weather Channel.
I'm not talking now. Hold on just a minute, I'm not done.
See how he does it?
CNN has taken a very strong position on global warming that it is a consensus. Well, there is no consensus in science. Science isn't a vote. Science is about facts. And if you get down to the hard, cold facts, there's no question about it. Climate change is not happening. There is no significant man-made global warming now. There hasn't been any in the past, and there's no reason to expect any in the future. There's a whole lot of baloney, and yes, it has become a big political point of the Democratic Party and part of their platform, and I regret it's become political instead of scientific, but the science is on my side.
I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion about the topic right here. What I do wonder
I know
is
we're
when
not,
you
because
see
you wouldn't allow it to happen on CNN. But I'm happy when I got on the
We've
air
been
and had
talking
a
here
chance to
several
talk
minutes.
to your viewers. Hello, everybody. There is no global warming.
What I do wonder is when you see the government, when you see NASA, when you see other institutions say that 97% of climate scientists agree, do you think they're making it up? What I don't understand is how you
Well, that's a
square
manipulated
that.
figure, and let me explain it to you. The government puts out about $2.5 billion directly for climate research every year. It only gives that money to scientists who will produce scientific results that support the global warming hypothesis of the Democrat Party of position. So they don't have any choice. If you're going to get the money, you got to support their position. Therefore, 97% of the scientific reports published support global warming. Why? Because those are the ones the government pays for, and that's where the money is. It's real simple, but that doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't make it true. That only makes it bought and paid for. The money goes in circles.
I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to try to refute you
Well,
on
that's not true.
All right. Just to wrap a few things up, I'm going to play with some carbon dioxide in a minute. But I mentioned the Volstock ice core samples. And I could send you, I put my email here, kurt@wrealestate.net. I do real estate too.
I'm sorry.
So the homework assignment, Volstock ice core samples. They're the ones that show that as the temperature warms, we get more carbon dioxide as a degassing effect of the Earth. So that's what those show. The Milankovitch cycles, that's the Earth cycles, distance from the sun, different things. There's solar flares, sunspots. They all influence weather. We have ash in the atmosphere. We have different things. We have actually clouds affect climate way more than carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide doesn't affect it at all. Clouds block the sun and also hold heat. So it's kind of a dual action. You know, is if you get a really clear night, you're going to see, you know, a little cooler. Unless you're in the tropics, right, where the water vapor is working, doing its job. But you're going to see the Earth doing its thing, as it says. I just want to make that quick. I know I'm running out of time here, but I want to give you some names. The founder of the Weather Channel, John Coleman, you just heard him. I have videos I could send you. If you want to send me an email, I'm happy to send them off to you. Patrick Moore, we saw him the first video. Okay, he talked about that carbon dioxide is invigorating the life of this Earth and this planet. It's necessary for every living thing. This gal here named Susan Crockford, Peter Ridd, both of them got sacked. So many of them have lost their jobs, they've been canceled, they've been shut down. Every one of them have suffered. There's a gal here named Judith Curry. She was a climate change believer. She was the chair of Georgia Tech Science Department, the chair. She lost her job. She can't even get work anymore because she stopped saying, wait a second, I had to look at this more closely, and that's nonsense. well, goodbye to you. You're not teaching what we want you to teach. We want you to brainwash people, not teach them thinking skills. So there's John Christie. Now, he's a name that's really good. He does a lot of work with Congress and has done a lot of stuff to try to expose the lie of anthropogenic global warming. William Happer, he's another big name, fantastic guy. Willie Soon, Richard Lindzen. I'm going to go back one here. Richard Lindzen here, he's got tenure at MIT. He's written hundreds, maybe thousands of papers on climate. He's been doing it forever. He rejects it. This is Susan Crockford. This is Judith here, climate scientist, Georgia Tech, no longer because she didn't toe the line. So my point is this, there's a lot of chicanery out there. There's a lot of people lying about stuff, and the best thing you can do is inform yourself. I give you some basic tools. You got my email. And also I'm giving you this Tom Nelson podcast. It's the Tom Nelson podcast. Just look it up, Tom Nelson on YouTube. He's interviewed hundreds of these guys. Willie Soon, all these guys here he's interviewed. Richard Lindzen, hilarious. Richard Lindzen says, oh, they made carbon dioxide a pollutant. It's not a pollutant, folks. But they've legally made it a pollutant, therefore you can regulate it. The EPA has made it a pollutant, something necessary for every living thing. So he said this, oh, that's great. Let's get some real genius guy, figure a way out to rid the world of 60% or more of our carbon dioxide levels. And what is the net outcome? Everything dies. No life at all. Plants cannot exist with that kind of level of lack of carbon dioxide. So some things to think about there is Tom Nelson, so educate yourself, get the video, send it to your friends, social media. That's the only reason why I'm on social media, is just to inform people. It's a hard job, but someone's got to do it, right? All right, let me just play with this a little bit here. I'm gonna use my carbon dioxide maker here. I have a thing here. I've never done this before, so I hope it works. Okay, so I'm just pouring in vinegar with bicarbonate soda, making carbon dioxide. I did it fast and furious. So, what is carbon dioxide? It's a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas necessary for every living thing on the planet. You are carbon-based. Every bit of the carbon we burned was once fuel or once plants. Coal, all that carbon came from the air, from the atmosphere. So, I'm going to just go, let's see here. Let me get this out of the way. Tell you what, let me do this. I'm just going to get this real quick. Can I borrow that? Here. Now remember, carbon dioxide is heavy. And by the way, what do you need for fire? Fuel, heat, and oxygen. What's inside of a fire extinguisher? They charge it with carbon dioxide. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, I got a big goop of it there. Here. Oh, that one went out. Oh, that one went out. Let's see here. See if I can pour it high. Not still too high. Let me get it. Okay. Oh, there it goes. So now carbon dioxide is not just, what this shows, it's heavy. It's trapped in here. It's not floating up like helium. It's heavy. That's why I have a tree line at about 10,000 feet roughly, anywhere between 8 to 12,000 feet. You have tree lines around the world, depending on where you are and the kind of type of trees. But you have a tree line. Now the tree line is there because carbon dioxide tends to sink where the plants are, on the ground, nice green grass here at the golf course. So I'm going to try this out here, just to see. I'm going to do a bubble. Oh, I can't do it. Nope, try it again here. Oh, I can't do it. Oh well. My hypothesis, and I've done it before with a generator, was I could blow bubbles of carbon dioxide and they all fall to the ground. Like they land like rocks. They just thud, 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 thud. It's hilarious. And I don't have a big enough thing here. But anyway, so bear that in mind, carbon dioxide's heavy. It's not out there in the stratosphere wondering what to do with itself. It's down here feeding plants, giving it food. That's where it belongs. That's where God designed it to be. And it flows, and sometimes you get more of it, less of it, depending on how much wind there is, how much is going on. There's all kinds of factors. William Happer, his doctorate, it's like on on carbon dioxide. He's like the biggest world authority on carbon dioxide. He's the guy you got to watch his interview with Tom Nelson. It's really good. So I'd like to just break that down. Do we have questions now?
Sure.
Okay, any questions? Yes?
I have a friend, we talk about climate change every so often, and he thinks global warming and climate change is happening because Earth is moving closer to the sun.
Well, he's got a new idea. I've heard that one. You know, I don't know if you can verify that. The so-called consensus, 97% of climate scientists, I read the paper by Dr. Cook. John Cook is his name. He's out of Australia. I read the paper itself. He says he took basically 12,000 papers, all on global warming through a course of 20 years, read them all, but didn't read them, just read the abstract, and checked the box. Anthropogenic global warming, yes. Anthropogenic global warming, no. Or anthropogenic global warming, we don't know. Okay? Now, it broke down to about a third and a third and a third. But they don't tell you that. So a third of them say anthropogenic global warming is real, and it's caused by humans, right? But who were those people? What were these papers about? Did anyone fact check them in the sense of actually reading them? Or were they just peer reviewed by friends? You see how it goes? If I get something written, it'll be fact checked and thrown out immediately because they didn't toe the line. I put something into the Press Democrat, it never got in as far as I know. Not one word. And it was within the category, of course it was just too poignant. But anyway, any question?
Yeah, okay, so, you know, the dinosaurs, when they were around, the Earth was a lot warmer, right? It was more, and then they apparently had an asteroid or something hit the Caribbean
That's
basically
one idea.
created a nuclear winter.
Right, see, that's what kills reptiles. Reptiles don't do well when it's
And
cold.
I think when a volcano like Mount Pinatubo blows up, doesn't it spew more gases into the atmosphere than we put in there since the
absolutely.
Russell 8?
Oh yeah, no, we don't even, we
So
dwarf
what do you think the agenda is behind all this crap?
total control. They want to limit us. They want to take control of the economy. What is the lifeblood of the economy?
Energy.
What exactly? Energy. And how to make a great economy is have affordable, abundant energy at a good price and a lot of it. Boom. We'll tear it up. Trump says drill, drill, drill. I'm all for drilling.
Right.
Let's do it. But no, it's climate change. See, they're putting a stop to it. They're putting all these regulations down to stop progress, stop the growth. We have more people to feed. We can do it with our technology, but see, they want us to eat bugs. They don't want you to eat meat.
Well, they didn't do that at Biden's state dinner the other night, did they?
No, of course, they're hypocrites. They're flying into Davos on their Lear jets and their private jets and private airlines constantly because you know what? They are there to save the world. And you, by the way, you stay home and wear your mask. Just shut up and wear your mask. All right, yes, Arlene.
So what are they trying to do by stopping the poor Dutch farmers and their cows from producing nitrogen?
Oh, man.
What does that do?
That's a great question. Again, it's all about controlling the food supply, making it too expensive. There's, you know, when you disrupt the supply, like if you have an abundance of something, it's cheaper, supply and demand. You have less of it, it's more expensive, harder to get. So they're really trying to stick it to us, the regular consumers, with expensive food. We can barely afford to drive ourselves anywhere now. We can't afford to fly anywhere. They want to stay home, put us in a stack and pack community, and control us that way. That's ultimately their goal, is to bring in full-on socialism, just like they have over there behind the Iron Curtain back in the day. I've been to China, and I tell you what, it is stack and pack there really well.
But the Dutch cows don't produce nitrogen, they produce methane.
Yeah.
But China's building how many coal-fired power plants?
Because they're smart.
That's right.
They're smart. They know they need to have affordable and abundant energy to have a thriving economy. So they're taking us and strangling us by throwing a wet blanket over us and limiting our food, making it cost more, our transportation costs. Everything goes up and everything gets worse when you put government in charge of everything. And that's what they want. Any other questions? Yes.
Mine's kind of playful.
Okay.
So we're aerobic organisms, humans are. We inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide and product of metabolism. So your demonstration was kind of fun, because I had an epiphany about the candles. So when we blow a candle out, Is it the velocity of the pull that we're doing, or is it the
It's
carbon
probably mostly
dioxide?
velocity, because I could do it without.
Because we're not very good at birthday candles sometimes, when
Yeah.
we don't have enough.
But we know when I'm breathing in about 400 parts per million, and as I exhale, I'm exhaling about 4% carbon dioxide. So that much has already gone through the system, and like you say, we inhale, we have complete combustion. A car burns not completely, so we get other things like carbon monoxide and other things. But when you have perfect combustion, you have water vapor and carbon dioxide as the result, and then you get energy out of that, which is what we want. So perfect, complete combustion is what we're shooting for. We work that way. All living things have perfect combustion. How's that?
But don't do what I did in summer camp and try to light your fart and
Don't, I highly agree. I was a camp counselor, and I never did that, but I've witnessed it. I didn't egg them on either, not much. Any other questions? Well, I hope you had a good time, and like I say, if you have any questions,
Thank you, Kurt. That was terrific. No, you're fine. That's fine. No problem. All right, so dinner has been placed on the buffet table. Let's let our speakers and our guests go first, and then we'll have the back half of the room. All right? So go ahead, please. It's buffet self-service. Bon appetito.
I'm going to put this up on the deck here. This is pretty heavy. I didn't want to have someone to pick this up. It's very heavy. Okay. I'm just going to put it there for visual demonstration. These are dollars. Okay, folks, I have $2,500, and you can kind of look at it. These are little silver dollars. If this is all our atmosphere, then this $1 here is all the carbon dioxide. That would be if this is all atmosphere. And these 4 cents would represent the amount of carbon dioxide humans contribute to that dollar. 4 cents to that. Again, don't play nonsense.
I'll be glad to help you with
You got an egg roll? Got an egg? Oh yeah. Good. Can we get that?